Everyone, welcome to Plants and Politics. So, it's getting hot in here. I have a feeling Kushner and the Trump family are going down. So, Donald Trump's ties to Deutsche Bank are pretty well known at this point. They were the only bank willing to lend him money after his 6 bankruptcies and his refusal to pay myriad other lending institutions, even suing some of them, and then costing them more money. And he did all that even though he had the money. It's not like he was broke and couldn't pay. He just didn't want to pay. So he used loopholes and tax write-offs to stiff the American people. And some people might not understand why I say the American people. I mean, he's not paying the banks back, but how does that affect us? Well, it's because those unpaid loans are then written off by the banks. That means that the banks pay less in taxes. So what happens? Then the national debt is incredibly high. It doesn't get paid down because huge sums of money are being written off on taxes because of cheats and frauds like Donald Trump. And then you get yahoos like Senator Ron Johnson, who yesterday was spewing his BS about how we can't possibly afford to give average Americans stimulus checks plus an increased weekly unemployment payment. Oh my gosh, we can't do both. What if we double dip and pay them too much and they actually can afford to live and, stimulate the economy? Oh my God, what are we going to do? The national debt. I mean, they're all like Chicken Little now, running around screaming about the national debt after they just let Trump balloon the national debt out of control for the last 4 years. Oh, and gave all of their billionaire buddies and corporations massive tax breaks that they didn't need. But I digress. This is not what this is about. This is not about taxes. So what this is about is 2 Deutsche Bank representatives, the 2 who are most responsible for these very strange, quizzical loans to Trump, were Rosemary Vrablic, I believe is how you pronounce it, and Dominic Scalzi. When not one single lender in the United States would touch Trump and his businesses with a 100-foot pole, let alone a 10-foot pole, for some reason, these 2 helped Trump to secure over $300 million. Loans, which, by the way, were personally guaranteed, and they're coming due in 2023 and 2024. So that means that the bank can go after and seize Trump's personal assets if Trump defaults on his loans. But, I'm sure that has nothing to do with why Trump is so desperate to remain in power or to keep grifting off of his donors, with that little asterisk at the bottom saying that a large portion of the money that he's receiving in those donations, those Stop the Steal donations, can go directly into his pocket and be used for his personal benefit. I'm sure one has nothing to do with the other. And oddly, Vrablic was a VIP guest at Trump's inauguration. She, in fact, was seated center stage, like 10 rows from the podium where Trump spoke. But Donald Trump isn't the only one that Deutsche Bank has done business with. They've also worked with his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. And in fact, it was Kushner who introduced Trump to Vrablic. Well, today it was reported that Vrablic and Scalzi have both resigned from Deutsche Bank. Vrablic claims that she wants to retire, and Scalzi has provided no reason whatsoever for his departure, but the timing is very suspect. It kind of suggests that it could be due to the potential pending litigation involving Trump and the bank's liability to their investors. So, for instance, the Manhattan DA's office is investigating whether Trump artificially inflated the value of his assets to obtain financing and then decreased the value of his assets to get lower rates on insurance policies. And they recently interviewed Deutsche Bank employees as part of their probe. Now, in addition, Deutsche Bank launched an internal review back in August, just a few months ago, in relation to a deal involving Vrablic, Scalzi, and Jared Kushner. So apparently, Deutsche Bank is investigating how and why Vrablic and Scalzi and one other employee came to purchase a Park Avenue apartment from a company in which Kushner is a co-owner, because the bank apparently has a standing position on this. They typically bar employees from doing business deals with clients. And a bank spokesperson named Mr. Hunter said that they were reviewing not only this specific transaction, but also, quote, the fact pattern from 2013. So it's possible that this isn't the only deal in which these employees took part, but it's pretty telling that they were both directly involved with the Trump and Kushner families. And now that one term Trump is lost and he could be heading towards criminal charges, they're both stepping down at the same time. That's not a coincidence. Sorry. And if Trump is charged, I mean, these would be state charges. So Trump can't pardon his way out of this. He can pardon himself for federal crimes, but not state. And he's no longer going to be protected by that ridiculous OLC memo, which suggests that a sitting president can't be prosecuted. Now, some say, well, banks do their own evaluation. They use appraisers to value properties. And yes, that's absolutely true. The problem is, if you don't have enough relevant comps to establish a realistic value of a property, you're kind of guessing. You're kind of pulling stuff out of thin air. You know, banks want to see sales within the past 3 to 6 months. If it's a unique property, they may even allow you to go out even further from that timeline if there's nothing that has sold. These properties are estates, they're huge hotels and commercial property, and so you can't always find comps within a certain time frame that you need, or it's hard to find a like property. It's hard to find one with the same number of rooms, with the same square footage, with the same property size, you know, the same square footage on the lot, the same amenities within a certain circumference of your property. So it's possible, you know, that they relied on Trump to give them his idea and maybe they wanted to make him happy. But it's also possible that there's something else even more nefarious that could have taken place. We'll have to wait and see. But beyond this one issue of property values and inflation of assets, Trump has now been caught paying large sums of money to Ivanka and then writing it off as a business expense for consulting fees. And as an employee of the Trump organization, how do they justify also paying her outside consulting fees? That's not allowed under the tax laws. So we'll see how they wiggle out of that one, if they can. In addition, there's the matter of the campaign finance violations due to the hush money that Trump paid to Stormy Daniels just prior to the election. Michael Cohen went to prison for his involvement in that. That was essentially illegally funneling campaign money for a political reason. That was directly related to the campaign. He paid her that money to keep her quiet so that he could win. So that was a campaign expense. And if it wasn't, then you can't use the money for that. So the fact that he paid Cohen back out of campaign money means it has to be a campaign expense. If it's not, you're not allowed to use it. And if it was a campaign expense and you didn't file the appropriate paperwork, you didn't tell the truth, and you didn't report that as a campaign expense because you were trying to keep it secret, that's also illegal. Why would Trump not be guilty? Cohen made the payments on his behalf, and Cohen went to prison in part for that reason. If it was illegal for Cohen, it was illegal for Trump who directed him to do it. And we have that on tape. That was one of the recordings that Michael Cohen made. But this is why he's so desperate to stay in office. So I'll let you guys know if I hear any more. As always, like, share, subscribe. Thanks for watching and listening. I'll talk with you soon. Take care. Thanks for listening to Plants and Politics. The only way we can take our country and power back is to spread the truth and build an army. So remember to like, follow, subscribe, and share on Facebook, YouTube, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks again.